Okay, turn your Bibles, please, to Acts 27. This is our second last lesson in the book of Acts, which we've been doing for 6 months.
Come on, Joe.
So there's a lot to plow through, but if we pick up, it's all about Paul getting to Rome. That's the end of the book of Acts. And here the title today is Courage and Godliness in Storms Life. So I do appreciate what Jessie was just sharing about the storms of her own life. But, we will all go through storms. The issue is how will we handle them? So we're going to pick up in Acts 27, verse 1. And there's a lot to go through today, but like I said, it's the end and the rushing towards this big climax. And there's a map on the notes that I've sent out. And as you can see, Paul covers a lot of ground here. But in Acts 27, verse 1, it says, when it was decided that we would sail for Italy, that's where Rome is, okay? Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. We boarded a ship for Adramyttia, about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia. Asia is not China, it's Turkey, okay, just to let you know. I was talking to a Chinese guy yesterday. I said, you think it's a Western religion, Christianity? I think it's an Eastern religion. He goes, I don't get it. I said, well, I live in England, so Israel's to the east, do you know what I mean? Okay, all right. So, just got to get in here. Okay, we boarded a ship and said, Articus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. The next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius, with kindness to Paul, allowed him to go with his friends so they might provide for his needs. From there we put out to sea again and passed the lee of Cyprus because the winds were against us. When we had sailed across the open sea off the coast of Sicily and Pamphylia, we landed at Myrna in Sycia. There, a centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. We made slow headway for many days and had difficulty arriving off Sindus. When the wind did not allow us to hold our course, we sailed for the lee of Crete, opposite Salome. We moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Havens, near the town of Lassa. Much time had been lost, and sailing had already become dangerous because by now it was the Day of Atonement. So Paul warned them, men, I can see our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to ship and cargo and to our own lives also. But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and the owner of the ship. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete facing both southwest and northwest. Considering the book of Acts sort of goes over so many facts. There are so many other almost more interesting things in the book of Acts which you sort of go, I wish this was expanded on. So why go through all of this rigmarole to describe everything that's going on here? Well, as everything with the Bible, there's a lot more deeper things going on in the Bible. So Paul is describing, or that Luke, the writer, is basically describing, all these different things and places they've got to go to and these navigation of ships. And what is he expressing here? He's going, man, this was a difficult journey. So when you're on a difficult journey, you normally seek advice, don't you? You go, man, this is going to be something that's going to take thought, planning, and everything like that. And so you have all these different ports, you get all these different reasons for going here and going there. So what is actually going on? There's a couple of little extra things we want to see in here. First of all, you see God is in control in terms of Julius, this Roman guy, is being kind to Paul. Now remember, he's a prisoner. So there's a lot of background things going on here. And then you also see that Paul is accompanied by some friends. So there's a lot of other juicy things. There's this guy called Articus here, who was an early Christian mentioned, who basically said, you know what, Paul, I know you're going to go to Rome, and I know you're going to go through all these difficult times, but I'm going to join you. I'm going to be your mate. And that's how you know people are your friends, aren't they? Like a time in need, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Which basically means like when you're going through hard times, all your non-friends, they jump ship. Literally. And then you've got all your friends there that are there. We find out that this guy is one of those guys that is with Paul a lot through his journeys. One thing I love about the church is just seeing the friendships that are there. Even just friendships to us as a family. Millie again helped our daughter Ali get a job at Sydney Uni. And to understand the significance of that, my daughter is 21. She's now earning $50 an hour at Sydney Uni. Yeah. Okay. Because Millie loves God and loves us, my daughter is benefiting from that. And many of you have jobs at Sydney Uni as a result. Okay? And that's why some of our contribution is so high and why we find it easy to give special contribution. We need to appreciate people like Millie in the church. What she has done for us as a family is astronomical. It's not that, oh, Millie. You know, I asked this morning, Millie, what could I get you that would make you feel special? I won't tell you what she answered. Okay. Maybe, okay, said, a husband with an Australian passport. Okay. Some things are inside my control and some things aren't inside my control. I mean, I know I helped Aaron and Fung, but it was the Lord that helped them, not me. Okay. But we all need those friends. I think I was just praying with Ray on Saturday, and he said, you know, it's amazing. Hannah brought me some soup. He said, I'm used to being looked after or you know, given things, you know, if I've got a girlfriend and stuff, but he's single, amen. But he said, Hannah's just somebody who just came and gave me soup, and he said, it's unusual for me just to receive that sort of love from somebody that doesn't have an agenda, that's just being loving. All right? That doesn't happen in the world. I love the sisters' households. It's great just to see these friendships. I made a complete blunder yesterday, all right? Knock before you go into people's houses. This was terrible, okay. So we have an upstairs sister's house and a downstairs sister's house. And I thought the Young Radicals was at the downstairs house, at the upstairs house. And the bacon is smelling through the, you know, from the bottom to the top. So I go up and I'm with Ray, and I just knock, 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 walk in. Felice is there in the kitchen, hi. Then I hear these screams at the back, and his sisters just head to the bedrooms. I've walked in the wrong flat, amen. I appreciate your forgiveness, I walked straight back out. Okay. The friendships in the church have great impact. And we need friends like Paul had at that time. You know, but what is going on in this whole passage? Well, it's pretty simple. It says that in this difficult situation, lots of people, lots of challenges, who do they go to for advice? Do they go to Paul, who's spiritual but not a sailor? Or do they go to people that in the world's eyes go, well, you're going to ask all these other sailors and all those different types of people? This is something we have to understand as Christians. Don't go to worldly people for advice, go to spiritual people. Right at the Apostle Peter's calling, he's a fisherman, right? He's caught no fish all day. Jesus comes along, and he's not a fisherman. He goes, put out into deep water. Peter goes, all right, I know you're not a fisherman, but I'll do it because it's Jesus. I mean, Jesus says it, so I'll just do it, okay, you know. And then he catches loads of fish. We still can be very, very worldly. Now, too many of us listen to advice on our love life from non-Christians or parents that are divorced. Think about that. Okay, your parents have deep conviction. You need to do this and do this. It's silly to date this person in your church and do that. You go, so you and mum aren't together. Right. Success rate, not very good. Yeah, but you got to understand, you're listening to a 23-year-old. Yeah, I'm listening to a spiritual person who knows the Bible and is teaching me from God's principles. That's what's going on here. See, Paul was in tune. Everybody is completely selfish. Even as Christians, we struggle with that selfishness. But everybody's got their agenda, and everybody's got their opinion. But really what you've got to say, where do they get their opinion from? We go to the Bible and have thousands of years of wisdom from the Bible. And it's amazing when you study the Bible, people, they go, yeah, I know that's what the Bible says. I know that's what the Bible says, but. There is no but. Okay? It's just what the Bible says. So people go, why do you have so much conviction? Why are you so strong on your beliefs? I go, because they're not my beliefs. They're God's. So you're so immovable. Yeah, I absolutely am immovable on what God says. On everything else, I'm pretty relaxed. Absolutely. You know, we were talking to Aaron and Fun. We took them out for a nice meal. So, again, we're trying to win people over. I said, Aaron, how do you want to do it? I said, okay, well, then you need to get your family involved. There needs to be the family breakfast afterwards, and then we'll get together and we'll talk about it. And we were talking about their wedding, and I appreciate his family. They're going, you know, we'll get with your pastor first and see what he thinks. Our agenda in our wedding is simply this. Make sure you're pure. Make sure you involve your family to help them see God in it and enjoy yourself. That's our principles, right? Everything else is tradition. And we've got to really understand that, because I've totally lost my thing here. Okay, listening to spiritual people. We are to have conviction on spiritual issues from the Bible. But then everything else is open. Anyway, that's the whole point of that beginning, is that they should have listened to Paul. Why? Because then it all goes wrong. Acts 27:13. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity. So they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore to Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force, called for the northeaster, swept down from the island. So what's happening here is, they're encouraged to go, our opinions are right, our opinions are right. The wind is it's slow. And so they go for it. They don't listen to Paul. It says, the ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind. So we gave way to it and were driven along. As they passed the lee of a small island called Cordia, we were hardly able to make lifeboats secure. So the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Citrus. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day they threw the ship's tackle abroad with their own hands. Neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging. We finally gave up all hope of being saved. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep your courage, because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. Last night an angel of the Lord to whom I belong, Last night an angel of God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, do not be afraid, Paul, you must stand trial before Caesar. And God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. You think about this. So now a complete disaster is happening. Okay, they thought, it's a little wind, we'll get on board, we're right, okay. Then just everything goes disastrously wrong. And then they start throwing things overboard, and basically they're just like, our life is going wrong, and they give up hope. That's the non-Christian life, isn't it? We want to take control of it, we think and we know what we're doing, then we go on in life, a little wind turns into a storm, and then people give up hope. The amount of people struggling with depression today is astronomical. It is the number one health problem in our country, is people have lost hope. They've got money, they're in safe environments, they're in one-bedroom houses, but they have lost hope. Why? They sit at home and they listen to negative music or go on YouTube and then just go into negative things, and it kills their heart inside. And Paul goes, you know what? You should have listened to me. It's amazing. You think about it. In that state, how would everybody around him have felt? They'd have gone, shut up, Paul. You ever met somebody when they're depressed and you go, God can change your life? Shut up. That's what they may not say it that verbally. They just go, get away from me. And yet Paul is confident here. He goes, you know what? If you had listened to me, we've got the Men's Day and Women's Day coming up. We have most probably invited and studied the Bible with or brought out to church in the last 5 years, who knows, maybe 10,000 people. It may be that high. We need to go back to those people and go, how is your life going? Sometimes people have got to a point where they're going, I'm going to hand myself in. It was really great to have, it's funny, I'm reaching out to this Chinese guy called Xian, and he went away for 6 months, but I've been in contact with him in China, and he comes back with a new name. So we picked him up on Wednesday, he came to midweek, and I said, hey, Scotty, here's my friend Xian. He goes, no, my name's Bruce. I'm like, okay, well, you're in Australia now, that's pretty sure, okay. And he came in, he was really fired up, but that's taken 6 months of bringing him back, and he's already arranged a trip to go, he's driving the next 10 days from here to Perth and back. I said, well, hey man, let's hope, you come back. But he's like, okay, come to Men's Day and everything like that. We've got to go back to those people who have rejected us and go, you know what, you should have listened to me. Maybe now they are humble. Maybe now they are open. Because it takes time. People often have to sort of trust their own advice, go with it, and see it crash in order to get humble. That's really, really sad, but it is true. Yeah. And we need to use those opportunities to go back, whether it's Men's Day or Women's Day, to do that. So point number one we're leading into. It's simply this. Are you learning to listen to the right people in life? Everything you believe was taught you by somebody else. There are very few new ideas in life. Okay? There are some, because obviously life progresses. So growing up, I didn't know computers existed, and now somebody taught me they do. But when it comes to daily practicals, there's pretty much nothing new in life. So everything you learn or believe, you got from somebody else, which means who you listen to is seriously important. So Acts 27:27, it says, on the 14th night, we were being driven across the Adriatic Sea. When about midnight, the sailors sensed they were approaching land. They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took sounding again and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved. So the soldiers cut the rope that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. For the last 14 days, he said, sorry. You have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head. After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Altogether, there were 276 of us on board. When they'd eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. When daylight came, they did not recognize land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach, where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. They hoisted the foresails to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered that those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or on other pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached land safety. So you have different groups here at different stages in their heart. First of all, you had the sailors. What were the sailors? They were still completely selfish. So they looked at everything and they went, okay, we know what's happening here. We've got a lifeboat. Let's get in them. And I don't care about these people. Let's just go. That is the heart of nearly everybody in the world. All right? They're selfish. It's amazing how many people say, I'm a good guy. Okay, what do you do for the poor? When was the last time you went and helped a homeless person? How much money this year have you actually given to somebody poor in Africa? They go, none. I say, you like to think you're good, but you're not. Okay, because we don't like to think we're bad. These sailors are like, we're in to help everybody, but at the soonest opportunity, they were out. That's how most friends are in life. They'll be your friend until it's not convenient to be your friend. However, you've got Paul again. Now he's taking charge. And what's amazing is now everybody's starting to get spiritual. You know what? Let's listen to Paul. He told us what was right, and now we're going to start listening to him. That's literally what's going to happen as we phone up people and bring them to Men and Women's Day. You have the soldiers. They've started to learn their lesson. They're going, you know what? We understand the concept of taking orders. So we did take them from the centurion, but now we go, who's the most spiritual person? Who's actually getting life right here? It's Paul. So Paul comes and tells them, you need to get the sailors. If we lose them, we're all going to die. So they start to obey Saul. It's amazing when we start to obey people that are spiritual, how our lives change. I've really got to give it to Aaron and his family, I'll be honest, because some situations were very, very difficult in Aaron's life. So towards the end of his degree, the university that he went to, University of New South Wales, put a class on Wednesday night. And that's what he needed to do to finish his degree. He went, I'm not going. I'm not going to miss church for 6 months. They said, well, then you won't pass your degree. He went, okay. Now, I'm sure to his parents that was like, what on earth is going on? As a result, he had to, do something for 6 months and go back and finish it. So we employed him and he went to Hong Kong as a missionary. Then he came back to finish his course and he graduated this year. That would have been pretty hard as a parent to accept, this crazy church, and it was actually totally his decision. And it was a righteous decision. However, if he had finished that course then, he wouldn't have gone to China and he wouldn't have met this beautiful girl that was, going to be baptized in that period in Guangzhou, that would have visited Hong Kong. And you see how God blesses righteousness here. And he's like, I'm just going to do what's right. I don't understand anything. So, yeah, he finished his degree a year later. But what did he do? He ended up with this beautiful girl from Harvard. And I don't care who you are. If you say, my wife went to Harvard, people go, that's pretty impressive, bro. I think for the rest of his life, they're going to go, so Aaron, how did you get her? And you go, well, I put God first. And it's a great story to preach. He said, because I put God first, and it may have seemed a bit crazy, and I may say, the more I give to God, the more God seems to bless. That was a pretty impressive thing that he did there. But he learned to listen. Did I particularly say to him, you must do that? No, he learned, though, to listen to spiritual people to make spiritual decisions. So Aaron is actually somebody who just makes spiritual decisions. So much of my time with him as I go, okay, let's get out the scriptures, let's study this principle. Go, what do you think? He just goes, I'm keen to obey. That's pretty much all Aaron really says is, okay, that's what I need to do. I'm keen to obey. There's not this resistance. I mean, that's why he's grown so much. I have to be honest, when he first stood up here and sung lead, okay, the only way he could get it right was June was at the back going, okay, Aaron, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And so we didn't see it, and then I caught it. I said, what are you doing, June? He said, I'm helping Aaron. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Now he's a great song leader. June sits on his own, doesn't need to be at the back going 1, 2, 3. Why? Because he's learned the spiritual principles here of going, you know what, I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier for Christ. I know who to listen to. I'm going to make the decisions. But not only that, it's amazing how your decisions can actually change your commander's decisions. And this is how we win our family over. It's great to have Pete here. But there is no doubt, I think it would be, Pete is Jesse's father. I think it would be no mean thing to say that one of the things that had a big impact on him was their wedding and the groom honoring. To see the church in action. So many of us want our families to come, want our mums to come, want our dads to come to the Men and Women's Day. It's seeing our obedience to Christ that wins them over. It's like here now the centurion's like, wow, the soldiers are obeying Paul. I think I better obey Paul then. Seems like it's working for them. And then it gets to a point where the soldiers want to kill everybody. Why? Well, the law was if you let a prisoner go, then you get the punishment that the prisoner was going to get. So it says there were over 270 people on there. So I don't know what their varying different crimes were, but you would think that some of them were really, really bad. So if they let one of these guys go, the commanders could come and go, okay, you let a criminal go, we were going to murder him or we were going to crucify him, so that's what you need to do. So you can understand why they would want to kill everybody. But now the centurion's like, no, I trust Paul. I don't think he trusted God. I think he trusted the God of Paul. And as Christians, that's what we take to people. We get our families to trust the God that we worship through us. That's all that they can see. And it says every single person was saved. Now, technically, that would be a hard thing to do. I mean, you just imagine everybody comes to shore and then nobody runs off. This has gone from a really difficult situation to everybody. They may have not become Christians at this point. But it seems like everybody got a spiritual mindset along the way. That's amazing, the power of one person. It's amazing the power of just one decision. Are you learning to listen to the right people? I do think about Jesse. I remember when we studied the Bible with Jesse, I remember he was slow to change. We had many conversations. And then he made that right decision. He said, I need to become a Christian. But then there was a difficult time. He got baptized with his best friend. And at that time, there was some strange things. We were trying to give some advice to his best friend about slowing down his dating relationship with the girl that had become a Christian with him. And he got really freaked out and went, you know what? I think they're trying to make me not marry her. That was never the issue. We're not against people being married. We're against people getting divorced. That's what we're against. So we really build people well. Relationships well. We do pre-marriage counseling, post-marriage counseling, because we're against divorce, because God is against divorce. He got freaked out, left the church, got 5 people around him and said, you know, this church is trying to control you, etc. We all need to leave. All of those people now no longer go to church, and his relationship has broken up. Jesse at that moment had to make a decision. Do I go with my best friend, or do I stay with what's right? And he made a strong decision that I'm going to stay with what I know is right. As a result, he has a phenomenal wife in Liz. We're raising them up to, oversee all the marriages and everything like that. But it took one incredible decision. I'm going to change who I follow in my life. This is a loyal friend from before I was a Christian. We have got history here. But I'm going to change my loyalty from other human beings to spiritual human beings. And as a result, he's sitting here with his beautiful wife and his father. That's what it takes. That's what it takes in strength, but also they are the rewards of what God will do in our life. You know, who do you want to save? Is it your mum? Is it your dad? It starts with your basic spiritual situation today and just obeying what you know is right. And then point number 2, disaster turned to salvation. Come on, Joe. You know, the story doesn't end. We've just gone through a whole sort of emotional period and dark nights and all sorts of different situations. But you see God all the way through it, and you see the impact of a godly man all the way through it. But in Acts 28, it says, once safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. The islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire and welcomed us all because it was raining and cold. Paul gathered a pile of brushwood, and as he put it on the fire, a viper, that's a snake, driven out by the heat, fastened itself on his hand. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, this man must be a murderer. For though he escaped from sea, the goddess of justice had not allowed him to live. But Paul shook that snake off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. The people expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead. But after waiting for a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they changed their minds and said he was a god. There was an estate nearby that belonged to Publius, the chief official of the island. He welcomed us to his home and showed us generous hospitality for 3 days. After his father was sick in bed, suffering from a fever and dysentery, Paul went in to see him, and after prayer placed his hands on him and healed him. When this happened, the rest of the sick on the island came and were cured. They honored us in many ways, and when we were ready to sail, they furnished us with supplies as we needed. There's a number of things to get from this passage. First of all, look at the heart of Paul. Paul's a pretty impressive guy. He's an apostle and he's done great things. Yet, what's his attitude in this situation? He goes, I'm a servant. We need a fire, I'll go pick up the wood. You know, we never get beyond being a servant. You know, I was talking to a Bonnie, and I think somebody gave her a tin. She does all her money. She said, I've got this tin of special contribution, and it's lots and lots of coins. And the brother said, there's lots more coming. What should I do? I said, well, we are called to be servants, so it might have been great if you'd put it in cash form or done it via email, but we're called to be servants. So if that's what we need to do, we need to go to the machine and chuck it all in and do it like that. We're all called to be servants. Doesn't matter whether you're a leader or whether you're not a leader. Doesn't matter what position it is. We're all meant to be like Paul and go, you know what, if I need to pick up the firewood, etc. And yet, one of the funny things about being a servant is that doesn't mean everything goes well. Okay? In actual fact, the more you get involved in serving, the normally things go bad. So I appreciate some of the servants in the church. You know, Solomon sets up here in the morning. About a month ago, he arrived in the morning, and he phoned me up. And I have a rule. I don't pick up the phone on Sunday mornings, all right? I don't need to know your business when I'm dealing with my business with God. Okay, then I can come and preach. So I have a rule. I said, Solomon, this better be important. He said, it is. He said, what is it? He said, there are no chairs at church. I go, that's pretty important, bro. Okay. I'll accept you calling me this morning for that. Okay. But because he was here an hour and a half early serving, I could send out a text going, guys, bring your chairs. You see, being a servant has an impact. The more servants we have, the better things run. But it's amazing. You see people's attitude here. And this is the world for you, isn't it? He gets bitten, and their first thing is he must have done something bad. They're like, life's gone bad for you. You must have sin. You know, Stuff happens to you that is bad. That's just life. It's not necessarily God, or it's not God. Even as Jesse was saying, why has it all gone wrong, God? Who says it's gone wrong? All right? Who says a breakup is what's wrong? Maybe it's exactly what's right. Yeah. But here we see the worldly point of view. Well, he's a murderer. They wait a little bit. He's a God. I mean, that's the world for you, isn't it? It's like, there must be a God. Oh, I failed my exam. There's not a God. My mum loves me. There is a God. My mum's, hates me. There is no God. I mean, our emotions do not change it. What actually stops people becoming Christians when you think about it? Is it facts? No, it's not, is it? It's emotions. How many people know Christianity is right, know the Bible is true, and you go, why aren't you becoming a Christian? They go, and actually, whatever they say, it's my emotions are controlling me. That's actually what ends up coming. Well, I feel, my mum feels, my dad feels, my job feels, you don't understand. We're controlled by our emotions. Why did I become a Christian? I had spent 23 years being controlled by my emotions. And I was sick of it. I was sick of thinking, will I wake up tomorrow happy or will I wake up tomorrow sad? In other words, I felt like I couldn't control my life. And I was like, I hope I can wake up happy. And invariably what happened, I wasn't happy. And then about 10 o'clock at night, you get to that point where you go, I'm starting to feel a bit happy and rebellious. I don't want to go to sleep. And I'm trying to be happy to 2 o'clock in the morning by watching some movie that I knew I should really fall asleep and not watch. And that part of rebellion in my life is now I feel some sort of happiness. Whether it be playing video games, etc. like that. That's not what life is about. Yeah. When I saw Jesus in the Bible and I saw him being crucified, and I started to read it, I started pondering on it. I went, here's a guy that is being crucified, is not angry, is not bitter. He is completely in charge of his emotions. I went, I want that. I want to understand that. I want to know how to do that. I want to know how to master my life. Wow. Muhammad didn't master his life. Was responsible for absolutely killing thousands of people. Buddha did not master his life. He went from massively fat to thin and all sorts of different things. Left his wife, and basically the only way he could try and get some sort of happiness was to go and sit on a mountain somewhere on his own. That's not in control of your emotions. Jesus was in the world, was being absolutely hunted down, treated terribly, and went, you can't steal my joy. Wow. That's what I want to know. That's the power I want to know. Isn't that the power you want to know? When you become a Christian, you are simply saying, I am going to learn of Jesus for the rest of my life how to master my emotions. And every time that my emotions master me, I'm going to go to the Bible and go, Jesus, tell me what to do. And that's it. That's what it means to be a Christian. So that we change more and more and more. And it's amazing. Sometimes we forget how much people change. Just take a look around the room. Some of you have been in the church a long time. I mean, I don't know if Tim can get any thinner. Okay, all right. Tim is not half the man he used to be. He's a third of the man he used to be. He is. We're like, bro, take some of Leo's clothes. I think they fit you now. Do you know what I mean? But it's amazing. Imagine what you will be like in 10 years, in 20 years. Imagine who you will be, how Christ-like you will be if you just stay faithful. We're not blown from one aspect to the other. It's not blessings and curses. You keep the narrow path, you keep on it, and you will change. And then in the end here, we see the power of it all. So he was shipwrecked. That was a bit of a disaster. He had a snake bite him. That seemed like a bit of a disaster. Then they think he's a god. Through all of this rough patch in his life, if you step back from the whole passage, what ends up happening? He forms a church in Malta. So his main focus was get to Caesar. But along the way, Paul the prophet, who had set up this church and this church with intention, God said, you know what, I've got one more thing to happen in your life, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to use disaster to make it happen. I want a church on Malta. So that means you have to be shipwrecked and you have to be bitten by a snake. That's like going, you know what? I want to set up a church in Samoa, Scotty. But unfortunately, that means you're going to have some failure in your exams. You're going to have your visas rejected. And you're going to have to take your beautiful wife with you. That's what's going to happen. Well, I don't know if I want that to happen. Well, Amos, I need you in China. So this is going to happen to your life. Or Chi, or whoever it is. In other words, things have got to happen to your life that you think are disasters in order for God's will to be achieved in your life. Are you happy with that? Is that what you really, really want in your life, to be used by God? You know, what we see from Paul is Paul wasn't fazed. Paul wasn't sitting around moping when the shipwreck happened. When he got bitten by a snake, he did not go, God, why me? I survived the shipwreck and now you kill me with a poisonous snake. He just went, all right, just shake it off and move on. What do you have to shake off this week? Is it a failed relationship? Is it you lost your wallet? Is it some mean situation where somebody's been horrible to you? You know, it was only last Saturday, as in not yesterday, but the week before, they were running the marathon, okay? And then Lang comes up to me at 7 o'clock in the morning. She's like, Joe, got a situation. I said, all right, what is it? I've got Fang on WeChat or whatever it is, and her father has stolen her passport and she can't get back into the country. I went, okay. Aaron's running around going, I'm running for missions. So I figure out how to get on WeChat or whatever it is to China. I go, Fang, go back in that bedroom and steal your passport back. She's like, get in. I said, but you don't think I could do this? I said, get into that bedroom and get your passport back. About half an hour later, I've stolen my passport back. I've stolen my passport. I'm coming back like this. You have to remain calm in situations. You have to focus and go, you know what? I'm going to shake this off and we are going to achieve God's will in our life. She went from possibly being stuck into China to being Mrs. Ha. Because she went, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And when she got a passport, I went, run, Forrest, run. We will always have things happen to us. Sometimes our friends don't treat us the way we want to, our family, and sometimes we will be the one that doesn't treat other people the way we want to. You can't blame other people, you just blame Satan behind them. You know, when we're not doing well, we're being used by Satan. When we're doing well, we're used by God. We've all been on both sides of the camp. Other human beings are not our enemy, okay? There's only one enemy that we have, okay? Whether we're spiritual and not being deceived and we're being held by the truth in light by God, or whether we're being deceived by Satan. Always remember, other human beings are not the enemy. Never will be, never were. There's only Satan that is the enemy. So courage and godliness are the storms of life. Let me tell you, there are a couple of types of people here. The first-time visitors. I want to encourage you. We are a church that believes in the Bible. If you want to follow God, this is a place for you. There are those of you that have been studying the Bible. You know, let me just encourage you. I hope you don't have to go through a shipwreck and be bitten by a snake to become a Christian. Why not just get with the person that brought you today and went, that's it, hands up, I'm in. Get baptized tonight. And then there are Christians. You know, you may have lots of people for the Women's Day and Men's Day. You may have had them all blow out. It really doesn't matter. Whatever your situation, shake it off and make a decision today to turn whatever disasters in your life for a plan of salvation for you and somebody else. Amen.